Welcome to the podcast that questions everything, from conspiracies to philosophy, from science to religion. We will be looking at the construct of the illusion, and as always, we will question everything. Hello and welcome to Everything's an Illusion, a podcast where we question everything. I'm your host Rob Wallace, and today we have our first transatlantic international guest, Mr. Masato Toys. A fantastic illustrator, that's how I first came across him. Fantastic forum. We'll talk a wee bit more about Masato's projects and ideas. How you doing, Masato?
I'm doing fine, thank you very much.
Good. So you're over in Canada.
Yep.
And just before we started recording, we were talking about the whole idea of bringing on guests who are, like a lady next door and that sort of stuff. Obviously, I've brought you on because you're for your forums and the kind of way that you think, in a way that, and we'll talk about your forum because I think it's one of the best places online, bar none, full stop. At the minute, it's the place. It's an exciting place, and like a volcano of a whole hodgepodge of absolutely amazing ideas and some really interesting cats. But first off, who are you? Welcome yourself. Give the people a wee rundown of who is Masato Toys.
Well, that's the crazy question to answer for anybody, right? Who are you? How can you possibly sum it up? You're so many different things. You're so many different experiences and memories and everything, You ever hear of a guy named Alan Watts?
Yep.
He used to ask the same thing. He would say, "Who are you?" And then he'd say, "You can give me your name and your birthday and your driver's license and all that stuff." But is that really you, That's what people protest when they go to court. Those free men. You ever hear those free men on the land guys?
And
The court
natural
says,
law.
"Are you?" What's that?
Natural law.
Yeah. The court says, "Who are you? Are you Rob Wallace?" And are you Rob Wallace, or is that just a sound that you're making? They point at your driver's license. Is this you? No, that's my driver's license. You know what I mean? Who am I? So I could simplify it. I'm just a typical Canadian bloke. I was born on the West Coast in BC. Went to school like everybody else. Did a little bit of college and had my fun here and there.
See, I like that as an answer, because that's the sort of answer I would like to give when somebody asks, "Who are you?" Can you describe yourself?
Fine, I could be here. I could talk for 6 hours of who I am, and I still probably wouldn't scratch the surface. And everybody can do the same. I'm not saying that I'm anything complex. Everybody can do the same thing.
Oh no, for sure. So I'll give the kind of general standard breakdown of how I perceive or who I think you are from a kind of outsider looking in. I first came across I run the MMA show.info, but for many years I ran it a lot more kind of professionally, and was going to like UFC events with my press pass, etc. And I came across your stuff, the plastic kind of photoshopped, plastic packed plastic figures, and the one that caught my attention was the Steven Seagal, and very specifically the comes with additional hair triangles. And that had me cracking up with laughter for about half an hour, because I'm a big Steven Seagal fan, because his movies are just shite and they're the completely same storyline in every movie. The only thing that changes is as he gets older, he stops running towards the bad guys and they start running towards him. But the movies are the exact same in every respect.
You're a fan? You still call yourself a fan?
Well,
do you like bad movies?
I do like
that movie. Was shite, man. I fucking love that movie.
And he has one of the best quotes for me of any movie ever, and it's "I will take you to the bank. I will take you to the blood bank." It's just like the worst of kind of 80s, 90s action movies all kind of rolled into one, with some Steven Seagal branded spirituality, Steven Seagal branded martial arts, Steven Seagal branded hero, um, with that
That was a
patented hair triangle, black leather jacket.
no, he's completely doesn't make any sense at all. But he's awesome, man. We love him. I'm a big fan too.
So that was the sort of first time I encountered your artwork, getting that sort of, and then obviously through that I do a wee bit of photoshopping, and then creating posters and stuff. You go into different forums and you see what the standards are, and your sort of stuff always come up as a kind of one of the top guys for the kind of standard bearer of the artwork for like shipping, photoshopping, MMA kind of stuff. But right, we're into MMA. That's fantastic. But what really piqued my interest, I don't know how I came across your forum, but I came across your forum, and I was blown away by your forum, like absolutely blown away. And the main reason I was blown away because you have 5 subjects in your forum, or 5 kind of
Dude,
topics.
you and I have so many similar interests. It's bizarre. Every time you posted something, I was like, what? He's into that too? Like, from punk rock to, to different political perspectives to, I don't know, it goes on and on. I'm just like, like I said, we could likely just talk for hours, jump from subject to subject. And that's why those 5 subjects, I'm hoping that the kind of people that the forum attracts are the kind of people like you who is interested in those subjects, What did they call it? A Renaissance man? Like back in the day, if somebody was interested in art and like a little bit about history and things like that, like there's kind of a wide range of interests, and if you can get comfortable in all of them, they start to kind of come together. It creates like, I don't know, especially MMA, that's the most important.
I think they are I say Renaissance man. The kind of Leonardo da Vinci was an artist and a poet, as well as a biologist and a physicist and a
You don't
mathematician.
need to compare yourself to such great, great men. I think that, there's millions of these kind of people everywhere through all different lifetimes, whether they're famous like Leonardo or not. It's a personality type, they're attracted to a certain type of idea, way of thinking, and when you find people that think like that, it's like click, it's fun. Those are the kind of people that you hope to meet. So the forum, I guess, I use it for lots of times it's not very busy at all. I don't want you hype it up as this exciting volcano of ideas, but it's pretty slow most of the time. I'm always kind of hoping we get some more people. But for years, I just used it as an archive for things that I found, and I wanted to go back and revisit it, or maybe that would be good for research later or something. So for a long time, I was just posting things myself, not for anybody to read, but just to keep it as a library, you know? So, but the other intention is to use it as a magnet to try to find these people like you're just describing, these kind of people. And I think it's working, We don't have too many members, but everybody in there is like, I like the way they think. Most of them anyway.
That's what I really loved about the forum. And for the life of me, I can't remember how I came across the forum. It was maybe through your Facebook page, because I had liked your Facebook page from the early days of liking your artwork. So it was maybe through a post on your Facebook page. But when I seen the 5 titles, Anarchy Zone, Share Whatever the Fuck You Like, Creative Revolution, Art, Multimedia and Creative Activism, Super Dojo, Combat Sports and Martial Arts, Rebel Alliance, Politics, Illusion, plus Awakening, and finally The Sanctuary, with Wisdom, Spirituality, Paranormal and Insight, I was like, this is like I know that I'm going to be here posting some shit. This is my kind of place.
The
And then,
problem is the audience size. I don't work very hard at promoting it. There was a time when I was much busier and more active online, and I've learned sort of what it takes to get something going. You have to put a lot of energy into promotion and stuff. And to be honest, like I got my mind on other things. I don't really do a very good job of it. So if people like you come and post, it's like it's gold because we got this little secret treasure, But if you're looking for audience, it may not be the best place to go. But I kind of like those little spots, My favorite forums over the years were little spots, little interesting communities, rather than, the big stage, which is good for its own things. But, you know, I would always rather go home and smoke a spliff with a couple of friends than to stay at a big club or a party or something like that. So it's just the kind of personality, the kind of place that I prefer to hang out. But
Definitely, and the thing that I really enjoy about, as you say, it's not a huge community. It's not like Reddit, but
maybe it will be one day. Who knows? Things evolves. You know what I mean? Maybe it will die a horrible death someday too. Who knows? But
but there's a lot of subjects where there's a lot of people put a lot of depth and time and effort into can really getting to grips with a particular subject that they're interested in, and some of the I say the variety, obviously from spirituality to anarchy, from can how to draw creative subjects to martial arts and techniques. There's a whole host of stuff, but it's like there's something about a Renaissance man. This kind of idea. For me, I always say that. For me, that's someone who's survived childhood with their curiosity intact, and this your forum seems to be like a hub. Obviously, there's X amount of people, but they all seem to have their curiosity and their humour
that's it.
and
That's
intact.
that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to promote that curiosity, that creativity. I'm really big on creativity because I think we talk about people being asleep, like red pill and blue pill. You understand what I mean?
Yep,
Like
yep,
Matrix
yep.
stuff, right? Okay. And you either have the glasses from They Live or you don't, you know? And without a doubt, I think that there is some kind of a hypnotism in the Western culture at least, where people they go to sleep, boom, and they become slaves. They watch their TV without question. They watch their news without question. They go to work and they're not awake, And it's like we're all on a kind of an edge. And it's like you got to stay awake. It's easy to fall back asleep. And I think that creativity is a big key to keep people awake, is to find that creative energy and do something with it. That's why I admire you, because you do so many things with it. You create podcasts, you create artwork, you write articles about MMA, you Photoshop, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, there's a guy that gets it because you know how to keep yourself awake. It's like an engine. So that's a big part of the forum that I'm glad that you're picking up on. I'm trying to like excite people to, not just awake, but then create, like do something with that. So teach other people. Every time you make something out of real intentions, out of real experience, you know, you pass that on. It's like that's what it's all about. It doesn't matter if you like most of the stuff I made that I was like getting excited about these ideas were silly things. They were just MMA jokes and stuff like that. And I'm trying to mature a little bit into better projects, but I keep telling people it doesn't matter if you're making silly things. Little Photoshop jokes, man, it charges you up and it makes other people laugh, and it's just like these little shots of awakening in that you're putting out. It's fun. Don't underestimate it. So, yeah, that's a big part of the forum is to cheer people on and try to get people to gather on that state of mind, get off the couch, stop watching TV, realize that life is finite and do something with your time. Let's do exciting things and share, collaborate and cheer each other on. It's fun. That's what it's all about, man.
I like the I like that in so many different levels, and one of the for me an interesting thing about I firmly believe that near enough any kind of project that's whirling away in the back of my mind can come into fruition. But as
Yeah.
you say, it takes input equals output. It takes hard work, and you've got to actually believe, and then you've got to like follow it through, and you've got to keep churning
That's right.
away. And
And you got to deal with your own personal waves and ups and downs as too, and that's another thing that's important to me about the forum is that I need help with these ideas too. Well, I was talking with somebody the other day, and it's like to be an artist is a fight, man. It's and maybe that's why it relates to MMA because you have to fight for it. Your job and your needs of society eat into it. Your responsibilities, if you have kids or a career, eats into it. You know what I mean? There's always that TV at the end of the day where you can just unplug and do nothing. It's so easy not to follow these projects, but it's so amazing when you do. It's like even if you're not there yet, if you're fighting for it, you get a little piece out of it. I don't know, it's a rush, man. But it's not easy to do. It's like jujitsu training. Anybody who trains jujitsu, it's the same kind of thing. It's so easy to slack off. You know what I mean? And it's nice and it's comfy, but you kind of feel shitty about it. And when you go, you start learning more, you feel better, and it's like, yeah, I need to go more. It's the same kind of fight. So, people need help with that kind of fight. Everybody goes through, shitty times or like writer's block or whatever it is, man. And we need to kick each other's ass and say, what are you working on? Or picking what projects you want to work on. That's a big thing for me. I always have all these ideas. I got lists of ideas of things that I'd like to make, things that are funny or things that are cool or things that haven't been done I want to try and stuff like that. But there's only so much time. I got kids. I got a job. You know what I mean? I need to sleep. So am I going to have 100 unfinished projects at the end of my life? Or am I going to knock out maybe one or two or three that I can be most proud of? So right now it's like a balancing act where to put that creative energy. You only got a little bit of time in the week or in the day. And for all you people out there that don't have kids, fuck you. Get busy. Fucking use that time. Quit slacking. Because kids is great, family is great, but there's no more time, and you gotta fight harder.
that's it. I don't have kids, so I fully appreciate that, and that's one of the reasons I sort of fill my time. But an interesting sort of concept for me is if you're a creative, or even if you're not creative, if you have another skill, you sell that skill to somebody, and they pay you a dollar rate or a pound rate, and you produce whatever it is for them. For me, it's usually videos and graphics and stuff like that. But yet, I don't take the time to create my own stuff.
I know
Stuff
it's
that I
completely
want. I'm
unbalanced.
building somebody else's dream.
It's
Through,
totally unbalanced. I agree, man.
but that's not me. I personally, I build my own kind of stuff. Like I don't stop on my videos and my websites, my podcasts.
Dude, you're a machine. I'm so impressed every time. I'm like, how can this all come from one person? It's like,
Because I was single for most of my life.
yeah, but you didn't waste your time. Everybody has creative energy. That's my theory.
Oh
I
no,
think
for
a
sure.
lot of people just they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to access it. They don't know what to do with it, and they wouldn't have any idea what to make. But they have it, and I think it's possible. I think a lot of people just give up on their ideas. I don't know. It's like you said, you survive childhood with that little bit of curiosity intact. You know what I mean?
I think people sell their skill to other people who, if you like, people who are driven, and what they do is they buy up all the resource, but not just the physical resource. They buy up the mental resource. Like the people who employ me, the people that employ you. They buy our mental resource, our ability to create video and or
What,
animations or art.
what do you mean by that? Buy up the mental resource.
They like a lot of people when they come back from the end of their week, their working week, they just want to veg and watch television. They've spent their allotted energy for the week. It's now through education, mainly through the market, and they're now living for the weekend. It's now their time to watch some TV, to switch off, to do nothing. It's their privilege. It's their right to the ability to sit and do nothing. Whereas I look at life slightly different. When I have my own time, it's my right to create my own shit, because my shit is better than the TV. It's better than the radio I'm listening to. And it's no a sort of idea of I think my content's better. I just believe anything that comes out my mind is a greater way for me to understand myself.
That's it.
And why watch somebody else's fantastic imagination when I could be creating a whole world myself?
That's it, man. That's why I don't watch a lot of movies. I I find the art of storytelling through movie completely fascinating. It's my creative goal is I have some movies in mind that I'm writing, that I'm visualizing, and I know it's like a winning the lottery, but I want to make them somehow. So that's how I think. That's what gets me excited. But I don't watch a lot of movies because of what you said. It's just like, yeah, that's fine, man, but that's this other guy's idea. Like, I'm more interested in what I'm working on. I'm like, great, go, that nice movie, good for you, But sometimes I like movies, but I'm the same way, man. Because you got something to say. That's what it is. It's like you don't know what it is. There's something that you gotta get out somehow. And can you imagine all the people who have really interesting ideas or wonderful visions or great stories in their mind or experiences that are powerful, but they never manifest it into something, and then they take it with them. You know what I mean? There's lots.
And that's the mass majority of the human population, Mass majority of the human population, unfortunately, is through circumstance, manufacturing iPhones or digging up raw materials. That's the mass majority. There's very, the Western world, or the wealthy population that has created a way to, spend their time being creative, is a very small percentage of the total population.
Why do you think that is? Like,
Because everything's built on slavery, and whether we like it or not, it's like, for instance, I'm an Android user, but just say I had an iPhone or a Samsung phone. These are built in factories in China that employ. I think Foxconn employs around about the same population as Scotland, and these people are housed in mega cities, and they basically manufacture a high-end technology, and the factories have, suicide nets. The people work 14 to 16 hours. They're deducted money for toilet breaks, etc. I've talked about this in previous podcasts, but the whole idea of externalizing costs. The whole idea of a business is to get somebody else to pay for the cost, and that's usually in somebody's life. Like a young guy in Sierra Leone harvesting raw materials from a mine, who's only expected to live to 14 because of the hardship of his life, is the externalization of cost. Because if we paid him a real living wage and gave him health care and education, etc., then we wouldn't be able to exploit him, and the end product coming to us in the West would be 8 times, 10 times the price. And we can't have that because it's a consumer-based capitalist crazy system. Woofed, that was a bit heavy.
it's just used exactly the same word, man. That's heavy shit. All right, so here's the question. Let's move on to the other subforum. We'll get into politics. How much of that do you feel is just the natural, confused, evolutionary state of people? That's just where we are. We're still figuring this out. We're new to this industrial age, et cetera, et cetera. Or how much is being directed by some kind of,
Yep.
ruthless people that can do these kind of things without feeling bad about it. That's what trips me out, really, is the ruthlessness. Like you can say that we're all guilty, we're all part of it because we're consuming the products and everything, right? It's like a big net, right? But does it's I don't think it equates with the ruthlessness of those who see it and understand exactly, you know? I was doing some research on that Henry Kissinger guy the other day.
Uh,
The wars he was involved in, the people that whether he tried his best or not, the people that died under his finger, and that guy can still walk around dignified with a smile on his face. It freaks me out, man. It's like,
that it was last week's podcast talking about uh, Dan Carlin. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dan Carlin and his hardcore history. Yep.
yeah, I've listened to that a few times.
So he talks about to be a great man in history. To be a great man in history, you need to be a mass murderer. So if you're not a mass murderer, you'll never be a great man in history.
That's it. They gave Kissinger the fucking Nobel Peace Prize a few years after he had just like carpet bombed all these villages. You know, that's why I'm so skeptical of history, because history is written with that same notion that the great men are these mass murdering elite motherfuckers. And these are the men that are pasted up in our history books. These are the men where we pass statues of them going through the streets in Europe. There's statues to all these guys. I stop and I think, and if I learn a little bit about who that statue is, 99% of the time, they were some fuck, just like, you know, Dick Cheney and Bush and all these motherfuckers that are running around today. There's these elite guys who were involved in wars and killed people. And holy shit, history is all written from that perspective. And as soon as I like snapped out of that perspective, it changed my whole world. It was just like, I can't trust this story anymore. I can't trust the history. I can trust most of it, you know, to be about something that happened, but their spin on it is so weird for me these days. And it's fun because it changes history. It's like, oh, now I don't really know history. Let's look at it again. And I have all these new topics to explore from different perspectives, you know? History trips me out. That Dan Carlin guy, he knows his stuff, eh?
His history, that classic kind of breakdown of words, his story, so like the victor's story.
That's
So,
right.
so like
History is
we
by the winners, right?
yeah,
I believe in that 100%. History is totally written by the winners.
we
I'm
were
not-
me and my good lady were watching a Great British Bake Off or some sort of kind of cooking program where five people are given the same recipe and they basically have to cook the cake, and then at the end the judges eat the cake. And all five cakes were completely different, so they were given the same ingredients, the same instructions, the same time, the same equipment, but yet all five cakes were completely different. Now, if you look at mainstream news, obviously, you have like 60 news channels and 50 of them will
They
broadcast
all
the
tell
same
us.
video clip, the same image, and the same worded VT package. You know, this happened and this happened.
I can't understand how people don't see that with a red flag, that people don't find that odd. They think this is the news story of the world. If it's like we're all newspapers in like a little town of like 1,000 people. And obviously if, you know, this place catches on fire, that's the news story of the day and all the news. But the world is huge. There's so many things going on. There's so many interesting things to write about and investigate and stories to catch. And you're right, they all play the same script. So that's another thing, man. I've pulled out of that. I can't trust that anymore. The way I watched the news handle 9/11, it just blew my mind. They all followed the script without question. Nobody strayed. And you'd go on the internet and you'd find all these interesting leads and all these interesting questions and suspicious activity. And you're just like, why is nobody looking at this? It totally shattered my reality, man, watching that treatment of 9/11.
And I think this is what's really interesting about this time that we're living in just now, and also the kind of we were talking about earlier on about photoshopping and that creative ability to create your own meme. You know, people can do it with their phone now. They don't actually have to have any photoshopping skill, etc. They just need to, screen grab a picture, shove the text over it, and repost it. And it's good to see, like obviously here in Scotland we had a sort of trying to get independence, but let's look at the world scale. I mean, at big elections in America, you're seeing smaller sort of non corporate backed entities using social media and people using creative skills to pass the information to show the reality of what's happening on the ground. Bernie Sanders' campaign is a good example of that. A lot of people using technology to show the other sides of the story that the mainstream, when
That's
they're only shown, like, say, their prescribed version and their prescribed candidate, and the internet saying, "Oh, we have a broadcast station as well. We have a telephone with a camera."
I see it as a real kind of a battle between the mainstream perspective and the independent perspective. It's like we never had a voice before. How many publishing houses were all owned by big names like Carnegie and Rockefeller, and how many media outlets and newspapers throughout, that's why I think World War II, probably there's so much to learn about that we haven't been taught, because how even more restricted was media back then. Everybody had a radio and a couple of stations, and that's it. And if the prime minister or the president gets on the fucking radio and gives a speech, what do you have to counter with it? You got nothing, right?
That's it.
So so that's the thing. That's another reason why I want to encourage artists and creative types, because we can't fight back physically, because we can't, and because it's probably just as dumb, in my opinion. Fighting is stupid like that. The war will be fought with art. It really will, because art is it can be so powerful like that. So if you see out of that hypnosis, if you see out of that major media trap and you have ideas and you're creative, you're like a fucking tank, man. It's like, watch out for that guy, because whatever you make is gonna communicate that point of view. And the more people, like you said, even if you just make simple images on the Twitter or whatever, a little picture and some words on the bottom, bang, it accesses the mind of people faster than reading a book, faster than getting up on a stage and giving a speech. A good creative image, art with a good idea in it, when it works, and it goes straight to the subconscious. People see it and they get it, whether they want to or not. It's like advertising. Those billboards on the side of the street, they're doing damage to you,
Oh, yeah, for sure, for
They're
sure.
fucking you up as you're driving past them, whether you're critical or not. They're putting the ideas in your head, and if you're able to dismiss them or recognize them for what they are, you're still getting them, right? So that's why being creative is so important in this time right now too, because if nobody does that, we all fall back asleep again.
That's the study of semiotics. Um,
What's that?
Semiotics is the sort of study, the kind of about how to manipulate people essentially through symbols, through colours, etc. And all the advertising.
I,
Like an Italian spaghetti advert could have the colours of the Italian flag with a net.
uh,
The net automatically symbolises like freshness on the coast, and the colours that, even though Italian flag isn't there, but the colours of the Italian flag automatically. So you see Italy, you see the net, you think
feelings of national.
freshness, and you think pasta, and before you know it, you go down to the shop to buy, or the next time you're in the shop, you're purchasing that particular kind of tuna fish or that particular kind of.
That's right. Advertising works, man. It's no joke. You gotta, but it's really easy to be vigilant of it. It's really easy to see it for what it is, I think. But if you don't, it's really, really strong, man. I would like most of my illustration work in my career has been, assisting the production in commercials and things like that. And it's almost comical, really. start looking at advertising like this. Get to the core message of what the advertisement is actually saying. See if you can sum it up like a synopsis for a film, right? Use all the visuals, take whatever storyline that they're giving you in that 30-second commercials, tie it in with the product, and give yourself a sentence like, if I buy this commercial is saying this. If I buy this product, this is going to happen. And break it down. And I guarantee you, almost 100% of those sentences will be absolutely ridiculous. Like if a guy tries to pitch that to you, you just laugh, right? But you don't. You watch it and you go on to the next one. Advertising's like that, man. Once you see it for what it is, it's like the biggest joke.
I'm quite lucky. In one respect, as I have a dual colour deficiency.
And
So a dual, I'm colourblind. So colour has a very different. Red, green, and brown is the same colour, and blue and purple is the same colour. So, like the red, green, and brown is a. I just think it's all the one that's kind of. It's the same colour, it's the same spectrum, and then the blue and purple they're the sort of in the same kind spectrum. But obviously, colour is a huge thing which is used throughout advertising, and a classic example would be red eyes. Instantly says evil or devil or demonic, or so. In an advertising campaign, you could have like the red-eyed guy, and everybody would be like, "Oh, that's the vampire," or "That's the demon." And I would just think the guy had brown eyes and wouldn't get that connotation.
well,
It doesn't hit my brain the same way it hits other people's brains when they use colour to manipulate. And I've had quite a few occasions where people talk about the Matrix. It's tinted with green. It's like, is it? Or the Transformers, or the evil guys, or the Decepticons have red eyes. I'm like, did they?
I'm thinking of these nice, calm, brown-eyed Transformer villains. It's got
But
nice
that,
hazel eyes.
but it's interesting how, like, for me, obviously, the other sort of symbols in there, like the bad guys always have sharp shapes. They always have a particular kind of voice. And
That's
there's
art direction. That's I'm fascinated with that. Like I'm an illustrator professionally, right? So I always have to make those decisions. What color am I gonna pick? What kind of lines am I gonna choose? You know what I mean? Uh, I love that.
and I find that really fascinating, because it's obviously 1 in 12 males have a colour deficiency, and so it's a big part of everybody's audience. But a lot of people don't consider the fact that 1 in 12 males just see red, green, and brown the same colour, and they don't have these. So like the green fields with the the, the the beautiful brown trees, and the orange sunset. That's all bleeding into the same fucking colour. It's just a monotone of brown, and
That's really interesting, man.
and
I
so the other interesting thing, that obviously this is, I love the whole ideas of colour deficiencies. It brings out a bit of perception. Now that colour red is in science is a set frequency, so that is
I was
just.
just gonna bring that up. And it brings me to a question, and you tell me if it's too far out or not. They say that colors have frequencies, just like, and it matches with the frequencies of sound and tone and things like that, and mathematical, patterns and things like that, right? For me, red is not just a color; it's a frequency. Maybe it's a mental association. I don't know how it works, but when I see red, I feel it's more intense than brown. Brown is very calming and very soothing. It's relaxed. Red is angry, and I think I feel this, so maybe it is. So do you think it's possible that you could maybe train yourself, somebody like you, to detect the difference between red and brown, or like you tell me, if you think it's just a physical mechanism, it either sees it or it doesn't?
So there's a couple of things there. The first thing is the colour is a set frequency, so you can measure that, and red
Frequency of
is
what
with
though? Frequency of light? I'm not the best physics guy.
So frequency is so just say that the frequency within a spectrum of light. So like we know that, say,
It's a wave of light, like
yep. So you have
how
one
fast
orange,
it's going.
you have one orange, and you have two oranges, and you can count them. The frequency, and they have a set system to count the over a set period of time the oscillations of the wave, and that will give you the frequency over a set period of time, and then they can determine, right, that must be red, that must be blue, that must be, and that fits with the kind of science of the colour, and so they can determine and reproduce red, etc., etc., etc. So if that is constant at that side, then the variable is either the hardware, for me, deficient rods and cones in my eyes, or the software, how our brain interprets the colour. Now, the software is quite interesting because in different cultures and different countries, colours mean different things. Like, for instance, in some countries, red is danger. In other countries, red is has another connotation. In some cultures, pink is for a child, of a young child. Pink is female, but in other cultures, pink is male. So the colour can have it's programmed. It's a
For sure.
it's a
You'll see it in movies too.
Yep.
They'll switch the color palette depending on the scene. You know what I mean?
Yep. So a lot of Hollywood movies, they go with a beige and orange. It seems to be a big grey, beige, and orange seems to be a big kind of thing in action movies. But in terms of you talking about brown and red, kind of how you feel red is a particular, and you feel that brown is a particular, that is just your software. That is your education. Be it
Hmm.
the culture of Canada, be it the culture of your parents, be it the culture of whatever, but that's just software how you've interpreted. For me, because I've never seen red, or I have seen it but I can't distinguish it from green and brown, I have a different set of software that's arisen for me to interpret that. But nonetheless, the frequency of the transmission, the red item is still red, but how I've, through my deficient hardware and my software, have interpreted it. For instance, they done a really interesting experiment where they put people in different coloured rooms and asked them to gauge 1 minute. People who went into a blue room, who could see blue, everybody was colour efficient in these tests. Everybody who went into a blue room counted the 1 minute was over a minute, so say a minute 20, and they were just counting in their heads. And everybody went into the red room counted it too fast, so it was like 45 seconds. And everybody went into the white room was closer to the minute. So it showed that colour can have a direct effect
That's
on
amazing. That's a
you,
good.
on time and how you judge time. And there was loads of these crazy experiments where they were showing, like, there was a tribe in somewhere in Africa that basically, like the Eskimos in northern Canada that have so many different words for snow and a white expanse of environment, they had a very much a red-brown environment for their hunting, and they had specialist software, if you like, to deal with that environment. They had far more words for the red and brown compared to any other colour in their colour vocabulary. They
It's
had,
like painter, like an oil painter.
yep.
You have to be able to, especially if you're going to teach it, or discuss with other artists and stuff. You need to talk about color. And the range is wider than you think. We're taught like what, six at school?
Well, that's like I have a like the people who are colour deficient. Like, just say that there's a 1 to 20,000. I can see like 4,000, and you can see 20,000. But from the 4,000, I attempt to extrapolate the 20,000.
Huh? I worked one time at a summer camp, and we had one week where we got a bunch of kids from they call the Canadian National Institution for the Blind or something like that, CNIB. So we got these kids coming in, and we did a week with like kids with different kind of visual impairments. We had training before the camp, and it was amazing. They brought in all these different types of like glasses that you put on, like eyeglasses,
Yep.
and each one was designed to simulate a different condition of blindness. It's not just blind or not blind. There's different, you know, different limitations, right? So we got to try on all these glasses and like walk around with these glasses on. It was amazing, man. Just thinking about how it's like you said, how you interpret what you get. We're still not even the people that say that we can see colors. I think we're still missing a lot of things that we could be seeing, but we're not seeing, you know?
And for me, I think what's interesting about this whole thing is we obviously have five major senses, and if we just take me and you, two people, and we just take our eyes only, the amount of information you get from your eyes compared to the amount of information I get from my eyes and relative to colour allows us to see the world completely different. And when you take in the other four senses, maybe you have super sensitive hearing and you have a full spectrum of audio kind of reception, and I'm half deaf, or I have like one taste bud and I can taste on or taste off, whereas you can tell the differentiate between all the fine flavours. It just shows you how as individuals, each individual, how do they see the reality? How do they perceive reality? How do they build reality through their five senses in their own mind and that software and then that goes forward to interpreting. Because the mainstream basically tells us that, all our sensors are the same and we see and you're a drone and go to work
That's
and
it. That's
die and
that's the difference. Do you consider your connection with the world just like a mechanism, like a hardware software thing? The brain is a machine, collect information, it's all processed inside your head? Or do you feel like there's less division between your consciousness and the world around? And there's a more direct connection as well. You know what I mean? Like, for me, we're not trapped behind our senses. We're already connected. The senses is just like, it's like carrying a little eyeglass with you and a little telescope. And you know what I mean? Like, you got these little like tools to help measure and things if you need. But if you look at who you are, it goes back to the first question, right? Who are you? Are you a brain? Are you a mechanism? Are you a machine? Is the world objective? Like you said, the media tries to get you to think that it's all just one reality that we're all sharing and these are the rules and this is how it works. Or is it more subjective than that? I tend to think the latter. I tend to think that it's more dreamlike and we have more than just five senses. It's bigger than that. But that's your choice. You know what I mean? That's how you interpret it. That's the stories that you're told, the culture that you're told, right? The teachers that you had, what your parents told you, stuff like that.
it's definitely. I think they're the sort of the big questions that especially like if you smoke any psychedelics or have ever taken any. And I know that you have again smoked weed and you smoke weed and but in taking that sort of drugs, different drugs that change your looking glass into reality, and they either heighten or dull your senses, and through that sort of start to change your software, and you're like, holy
Now you're
wowzers, everything I thought is not and is changing in front of me.
Now you're
And
talking, man. Maybe it was just maybe I'm just a victim of taking dangerous drugs or something, but
a
it's the
victim.
truth. There was a time in my life where I discovered psychedelics, and I was just like, oh wow, like this is really really interesting. And I took a bunch over like a short period of time, like a few years. I just did a lot of them, and I can't deny what you see. It's like you said, it just changes your whole perception, and it's like, and from then on, it's like you said, It's that curiosity.
One of
Keeps.
the one of the things that I've always been fascinated with is like ancient culture. Again, how they built all this sort of megaliths and all that sort of stuff. And one time when I was high on marijuana, I was thinking to myself, how can we attempt to understand ancient cultures and ancient thought when they were high on hundreds of different kinds of psychoactives, etc. They were touching the mind of God with their own mind via a psychoactive substance, and
You
then
think?
and then we're attempting to interpretate that dry without any psychoactive substance,
Right.
and that's again you need to be in the same zone to try
Exactly.
and
But
understand
that
it.
zone is impossible to get at because you'd have to erase all your culture.
Oh yeah, for
You
sure.
know what I mean? It's like I said, your reality is based on sort of how you're introduced and taught about reality. What you see on TV, what your parents tell you, what you experience. You know what I mean? So we grow up learning about different scientific concepts and you know, we learn about this and that. So we build that map in our head of how it works, what it's about. We choose what's important to pay attention and what's not important that we can ignore. But if you want to go back and understand another culture, it's impossible because they were raised with. Imagine if you were raised, like thousands of years ago or whatever, or even hundreds of years ago, before the scientific revolution. You know what I mean? Before people started thinking that way. And magic and tradition and spirits and sacred places and things like that was not far out talk. It was every day. That's the way that your grandmother used to introduce you to the world. That's the way your parents taught and your neighbors and your friends and everybody agreed these things were real. You would grow up thinking that these things are real and having these ideas connected in your head to different places. This has as this magical, property, and this has that magical property, and this would be your reality, whether or not you're fooling yourself or not. To the person, that's the world that they live in. They live in this, a magical world, right? So how are you going to understand a culture because they were raised in a completely different set of values and everything, you know? That's why I get upset when I watch like history stuff. When people get too confident and they say, "Oh, they make conclusions, scientific conclusions based on evidence about what was important to these people and things like that." Drives me nuts. You don't know those things. You don't know how those people thought. They interpret the artwork. Fuck. Archaeologists interpreting artwork.
No, I'm with you there 100%. I think that whole fascination, like I only speak one language, but I have a good number of friends, and my good lady speaks two languages. But a guy I travelled around South America with, Armin, a Welsh guy, his first language was Welsh, and he talked about when he was getting creative or was drawing. He's an artist as well. When he was drawing, or writing poetry, he tends to think in Welsh because it's a far more creative language than English.
Hmm.
And that kind of blew my mind. I was like, it's as if he takes off the blue circle kind of window glass and starts to look through the red triangle window because
Hmm.
it's better for seeing kind of, and people just, and that's just changing the language, changing the culture, the time,
That's right. That's why
the.
travel is good for you, man, because it snaps you out of. We have so many things that we unconsciously just like assume about the world, but it's just your culture. And if you can snap out of it, that's what travel is good for. That's what drugs are good for. That's what reading is good for. That's what like listening to other people is good for. You got to snap out. I have a friend of mine who's a certified hypnotist, and he says that a big cure in hypnotism is just trying to bring the person out of their little bubble and looking at it from a new perspective. And he said, you bring them, there's different like positions in the mind that you can look at it from your perspective, you can look at it from like your sister's perspective, or you can look at it from like somebody else's perspective. And the more perspectives you can pull your mind and look at it from different points of view, from above, from below, a detail, the whole image, you move your mind around, look at things from different perspectives. This is I don't know, it's intelligence, you know what I mean? So if you can snap people out and get them to look at it from a different point of view, sometimes they can fix their problems, you know? So
It's
that's why
definitely.
media is all fucked, right?
Oh, we've got to love media. That's how we make our money.
No, no, I mean like news and stuff, because they only give you one perspective.
Yes, yes, completely.
It's
Well,
just one way of looking at it.
so
And all the unconscious assumptions that go on with it are astounding.
this is the correct way. This is the right way. And if you disagree, then you're wrong.
But they won't even consider it. They just start the program with all these assumptions neatly organized on their desks, all ready to go. You know what I mean?
But you can see that as well. That happens and it happens in mainstream science. It happens with people who prescribe themselves to be scientists or thinkers. When, like, for instance, in the last couple of podcasts, I've been kind of playing with the idea of a flat Earth, and just like I don't believe that the Earth is flat, but just looking into it, what is their argument? Obviously, these people who believe in the flat Earth, they've thought about it, they've looked at it, they're using math and science, and they're trying to debunk what the common kind of idea is. And at the beginning of science, your Galileos, etc., they were trying to debunk the church, and they were looked at as heretics and heathens. And
I don't
uh,
think they were trying to debunk anything. They were just trying to figure out what's the truth. They're just trying to figure out, what is it really? Like, can I figure it out on my own instead of just believing other people and taking things for granted? It's like orient yourself. You know what I mean? Figure out what is going on. See, these are all intelligent questions to ask. I think anybody you know, but you can go too far the other way too. I've seen conspiracy theorists get completely confident in their conclusions and their worldview, and they're absolutely convinced that this is the way it is, this is how it's working, this is who's in charge, and they get locked into that. I think it's a human tendency to build your worldview into something that you're comfortable with. You feel like you're intelligent, you feel like you know what's going on, and then you kind of lock it in because not understanding is too scary. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, yeah, completely.
But we'll
And
get trapped in a that's what everybody does. That's what we all do. We get trapped in our own ideas. So you got to keep pushing. You got to keep stepping outside and questioning yourself again and trying to look at it from new ways because there's always more, right?
well, there's you ever heard of a book called *Sapiens*? It's an Israeli academic, and he wrote this book called *Sapiens*. And one of the main theories that he puts forward is the difference between us and our closest evolutionary ancestors, the ape, is our ability to tell a story. This is the missing link. This is the thing that which made us become humans, if you like. And the idea is, apes can only go to groups of no more than 50. Beyond that, the alpha in the group can't keep control. So,
Ah,
and then they start to like fight amongst themselves, and this can be observed throughout the natural world. But as soon as you create a story, and then, like for instance, humans, just say I was a Catholic, anywhere in the world I can go, I can walk into any Catholic church, and I can automatically and instantly identify with the other person's story. We're both of the same story, and we can then start to amass in groups of larger than 50, because it's not about the alpha male, it's about the story that we subscribe to. And he writes at length of how the story is the one key thing which gave us the ability to supersede everything else in nature. And it's quite interesting how, if you look at it like that, then everything is just a story that we continuously create to understand our reality,
that's
our
what they say.
laws, science, our
That's right.
um, can everything is just a fictional story built upon the last story, which keeps on getting bigger and deeper and further. And
That's what a myth is. You ever
yeah,
read about Joseph Campbell?
no,
Oh, you'd like him. Write it down. Joseph Campbell. There's a few threads or in the forum. That's what a myth is. A myth, according to Joseph Campbell, is a story that helps a person orient themselves to their reality, helps them understand the big questions that you can't really get a grasp on. You know what I mean? It's an orienting tool. That's what a myth is. That's why I take storytelling seriously. You talk about story, the power of story. It can have the power to unify people, it can have the power to control people, it can have the power to do all kinds of things. So be careful. If you're going to write a story, take it seriously, man, because I get so mad when so much energy is put into Hollywood movies that don't mean anything. It's just fluff. It doesn't, it's worthless. Like even if it's well written and well produced and well shot, why make this, you know? What's that story about? What does it do for people? You know? I think that's why movies like Star Wars went as big as it was because it had a mythical quality to it that wasn't forced or manufactured. It was like Lucas read about Joseph Campbell. I think he had interviews with him and stuff like that too. He took Joseph Campbell's formula. Joseph Campbell said that there's a myth, there's a story that it touches all the right human qualities. So if it's told well, people will react to it like archetypally, like they'll recognize these themes, and everybody shares these themes in life. This is what, what it means to grow up in a human life. So they'll react to it. And the same formula is told over and over and over again in all the great stories. It's fascinating. You'd like that guy, man. You should check him out.
I've made a note. I've made a note. I'll definitely check him out. 'Cause I like the whole and that idea there. What you're saying about the you have to take a story serious, because I firmly believe that we've talked about this in a forum. You birth your story, you birth your characters. These people are. I've created an entire world in my head, and these people are. They have emotions. They have, qualities of different character
It's
type,
weird, isn't it?
and yeah, and it's the Rajul to me is any other, you know, character. There's a lot of
Somebody does it, and when somebody takes those characters, and it's like you said, the power to manifest an idea into something tangible that can be passed around, people can experience it too. When people create a real character, you know, and it sits into the minds of people, it's weird. What have you created? What is that? You know, I can think of several characters in movies that,
oh,
you know,
the bigger
had to.
than life. Yeah, Conan the Barbarian. Whoa.
Good pick.
There's some legendary characters that if you
That's
just
real to you, you know? And when they die at the end of the movie or something like that, um, you know, it's emotional.
and I think that like looking at popular kind of TV at the minute, the biggest one that's getting the hugest impact is the Game of Thrones, and R.R. Martin is famous for creating really intense characters. That they all have a very unique. And he talks about like I sometimes forget family members' names. I don't remember anybody I went to school with, but I know every one of my own characters inside out. I know their feelings, their thoughts, their whims, their inner desires. So he's built this entire world.
Where do you think these things come from? Where do you think these ideas come from? Are you creating it out of scratch? Are these new characters that you're weaving together, or are they related to things that are deep in your soul's memory or something like that? Like, where does, because it is a mystery. People talk about the creative process and how weird it is. They talk about a muse or something like that. When you tap into it, you get in the right state of mind, you open this little door, and this stuff starts coming out. and it wants, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
do these characters come from? I don't expect you to answer because I don't know if you have an answer, but
I've got an
it's
answer. I've always got an answer.
all right. Lay it on me. What is it?
So like, first thing is, I don't believe anything. So
Good
that's
for
the
you.
first thing. Um,
Good for you.
it
You have
could,
suspicions.
yes.
I feel like it's probably something like this, but I probably have it wrong.
That's this is a possibility of infinite possibilities. But in physics, at the minute, you've got three dimensions. The fourth dimension is time, and then they say that there's up to 10 dimensions, and the dimensions are essentially, as they go up in dimension 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're basically going back to the Big Bang and saying, well, if we go back to the Big Bang, and we say that all the physics is different, and then we move forward in time, then that'll be the seventh dimension. Or we go back to the Big Bang and we create unlimited variations in everything that we think that we know, then that'll be the 10th dimension. It's almost like everything that could be thought of, everything that ever has been thought of, is a possibility. Um, and within that, kind of looking at this whole wonderful thing of kind of craziness that is infinite imagination, then it could be possible that um, you're like a radio antenna, and you're tuning into other dimensions. You're tuning into other realities or experiences, just as a TV receiver picks up a broadcasted signal. We are, sorry, pardon me, creative people are tuning into frequencies, because we know that the universe, you attract similar frequencies, and they amplify each other. That's physics. So maybe you're tuning into different realities, or they
Memory, like
could just be
some
creating the
kind.
shit in our minds, but it could. It's within
That's
the realms of possibility.
no, I think that's cool. I never thought of it quite like that before. That's
But
but then why would you be tuned to one frequency and not another? You know what I mean? Like, I guess I guess it's just the nature of what kind of antenna you are.
yep, yep, definitely. Like, yourself. For instance, I buy a blue car. I'm driving down the street and I start to notice that everybody on my street has a blue car. Now, everybody on my street's had a blue car for 5 years, and I have never noticed that everybody on my street has a blue car. It's only because I purchased a blue car
Are you
that I've
thinking
now
about
tuned into that kind of, and I'm noticing these things. My wife becomes pregnant. I noticed that every second woman on the high street was pregnant.
that? Because you
There's a,
tuned it out before. It's like you said, your senses is like the filter
yep,
of how you build your reality. But it's not your senses. It's like I was saying, it's not the mechanics, it's your psyche, it's what you're thinking about. If you're thinking about your wife being pregnant, you're going to be noticing more things about pregnancies and babies and things. If it's not on your mind, you don't see it. Your brain filters it out. It's not important. You know what I mean?
yep, yep.
So you see what you think.
So taking that back to an earlier sort of idea of like creative revolution and being creative and being productive, is that when you're thinking about the kind of things, you're attracting other people who are that are being creative and are thinking along the things. So you're looking, and you start to tune in, and that becomes your reality. You're
And you can
looking.
create a reality too.
Yep.
I think that reality is a product of consciousness. You ever hear that flip? They say that is consciousness a product of the mechanism of the brain because we have so many wires in our brain, poof, it creates a consciousness. Or other people that turn it upside down and they say, no, consciousness comes first. And like you said, all the things that happen are all the ideas that can be thought, whatever, you know what I mean? You think it first. So I think if you have ideas and you manifest it through art, whether you're writing or whatever you're making, you create that. You take that idea and you create it. You can build a reality based on the thinking. I think the number one, if any kind of activist in the world wants to change something, in my opinion, the first thing is to get the way that people think, get the ideas out there first. first the ideas and then things happen, you know? I don't think we have the tools to do anything really big right now until we change, you know, get people to stop watching TV, you know? That's it, man. Unplug from that first.
There's taking what you said there, just that one kind of the kind of when you're younger and you see you've got an imaginary friend, or you see you create an apparition, you know, and for some people their imaginary friend is like physically like there. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a concept called tulpa, and I don't know if that's how it's pronounced because I don't speak the good language of Tibetan Buddhism, but in English it's Tulpa. And the idea is tulpa is to build or construct a magical emanation, conjured thing, or phantom
Hmm.
through sheer spiritual or mental discipline alone. So you basically, because I remember reading a book called Lobsang Rampa, and it was called The Third Eye, and it was all about Tibetan mysticism. This was when I was about 12 or 13, but I worked out the guy was from Bradford, like a place in England, and he basically was in his basement and he wrote the whole thing. He'd never been to Tibet, but he was obviously interested in Tibetan culture, and one of the things he wrote about was this idea of the tulpa, of, you know, meditating that hard for a year on one thing and creating a physical apparition, a real entity, a separate person or a separate part of his conscious entity, which interacted with him like a real person that he created, like a physical, uh, but obviously within his mind, but appeared physical emanation that was consciously created through continuous meditation and focused thought.
I've heard the same about Aleister Crowley.
Yep,
You know about
yep.
Aleister Crowley? There's a story where he would say that you would do the same thing to create a different kind of entity. You would have to imagine you sit in like a dark room or something like that, and you're supposed to imagine that there's a ring of fire around you. And you're supposed to imagine it so hard until you actually start seeing it and feeling the heat. And if you can do that, then you've tapped into these, you know, kind of powers that he was famous for claiming to have, right? But I heard the same thing about Tibetan. My wife is reading that, what is it called? The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying.
Yep.
You ever hear about that one? And they do the same thing. They say you don't have to actually create it, but on a minor scale, they said a good way to meditate is to imagine that you're sitting across from one of these masters, like you know, an ascended master, an enlightened monk, or something like that. And they said, focus on him. Think about where he is. What is he feeling? What is he thinking? Try to emanate this person in front of you, and it starts to work because if you do this, that's where your thoughts are. Your thoughts are imagining this character, right? And you're trying to pretend like you're that character. So are you not, don't you start to take on those qualities? Isn't that just logical, right? What a great way to meditate. There's another thread on the forum where we talk about this idea. You ever watch the old Kung Fu series with Kwai Chang Caine, the old 1960s TV show?
What was it called?
It's called Kung Fu.
Um, I maybe watched about one episode.
Oh my God, those are the greatest. That's my go-to character. When I'm in a jam and I think, like people say, what would Jesus do? You know what I mean?
Uh,
What would that Tibetan monk do, right? I go to Kwai Chang Caine. He was this awesome character that they created who was like a Shaolin monk. And he was always had this like kind of like cool and collected and loving perspective. And it works, man. You pretend to be these people for a moment, you think about them, and you start to move in that direction, you know?
I like all the kind of ideas that you, or some of the ideas that you get in Tibetan Buddhism and in Bon, and that I've got the American book of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's like written for an American audience, kind of just jazzing up the language so it's more understandable for Joe Blogs getting about the same ideas, if you like. And I like this whole idea of doing particular mental rituals and getting yourself prepared so that when you die, you perform a kata, if you like, and then can enter that space. If that's what you believe, if you believe that you turn into, if you go to Jesus, or if you go to the, can just turn them into worm food, whatever it is you believe. But I like this idea of like like a practice, so that when your time comes, you centre yourself and you call your people and you go through. And a lot of sort of native or tribal cultures had this kind of a system which people would employ when they knew they were going to die, when they had the luxury of knowing they were going to die, as opposed to getting an axe in the head. But they would go through a set system to ensure that they went to whatever kind of story they had subscribed to.
That's what I was. That's what I always think that, or feel like the Tibetan, the whole culture is all about. It's just like they're so convinced that the soul continues after death, that they're paying just as much attention to that as the waking life. You know.
We
I
in
think
Scotland have a very unique Tibetan culture connection.
really
We have the largest Tibetan monastery outside of Tibet in northern India. Northern India's got the biggest one outside Tibet, but outside northern India, it's in Scotland of all places.
is it a city or is it up on the hills?
It's in the lowlands in a place called Dumfriesshire. It's called Sammy Ling. But they also
So
have.
is it tranquil? Is it in nature, or is it
Oh yeah,
because
yeah. It's surrounded. It's like an old farm that they bought, and
really?
it's can get loads of land. And they also bought an island off the Isle of Arran called the Holy Isle. And the Holy Isle was a place where Celtic and then later Christian and now Tibetan spiritual folk would go and live on. And it's called the Holy Isle, and they bought the Holy Isle. So there's obviously an energy or something to do with this island. But that's where they do the 3-month, 3-week retreats. So you pay like a $5,000, and somebody will bring you your dinner every day. And you basically just sit in a small cubicle on a small island off the west coast of Scotland and meditate. You don't talk to anybody. And you go through this system, and you're isolated for 3 years. And it's
Years? Did you say years?
3 years, 3 months, and 3 weeks. It's a traditional system from Tibet, and that's how they really get to if you like, to know yourself.
That's
And
a that's incredible, man.
I think like folk like Jesus would have had to have done stuff like this as well.
Do you think that's overdoing it? Do you think that that's
Well,
running away from what the human experience is supposed to be about?
nah, I think quite the opposite. Like, if you were to, right, just say that me and you, I went to art school, yeah, and I done the full-on 3-year, 3-week, 3-month, 3-week style of, full-on every single minute.
You're
Again,
gonna
people
get
provided my food, etc., and I just fucking learned to draw and concentrated and everything. And you done the,
the
you know,
crash
the,
course.
yeah, where
It's a
90% of
good
your
analogy. I like that.
90% of your time is on food, sex, drugs, life, and 100 other things. And at the end of the 3 years, who's going to be the best artist?
Yeah. And what is 3 years?
Yeah.
It's like that's a really good way to look at it. I like that.
So
Yeah, exactly.
they have
Let's
they have this, and it's just down the road from me. I've been a good few times.
Are
That's
you you
quite
consider
interesting.
doing it?
When I was
You
younger,
kidless bastard.
I did consider this whole idea of trying to, do the 3 years, 3 month. But it's like everything. There was a classic quote that I used to always go to: "Anyone can become spiritual in a monastery. The real challenge is conducting and carrying yourself in real life that way."
That's what I was asking. I'm thinking of what my wife would probably say. It was like she's always into when people take an idea too far. You get a good idea and people bring it to the extreme. They have to go full on. You know what I mean? And it was like, is that really natural as a human in the human experience? Is not the human experience learning how to balance things and how to juggle and how to find time for spirituality among, the problems of staying alive and things like that? Is that not what it's all about? You
That's
know,
just one version. That's one story. That's again one potential outcome of the human experience. Who's to dictate what the human
yeah,
experience or the story is? It's
yeah.
unique for every. And I definitely find myself as a person who jumps to the extremes. I like extreme stuff.
Yeah, because if you're gonna taste it. You know?
But it's definitely I like this whole idea of um, like obviously Tibetan Buddhism, they mixed it with Bon, and Bon was like the native shamanic kind of shit that they were into, like taking loads of hallucinogens and summoning various deities for rivers and this kind of good stuff.
I
So,
would love to learn more about Scottish mysticism.
oh, there's plenty of good stuff. Scottish mysticism, fairies, and
I'm serious, man. That stuff is really interesting to me. I had uh, an experience that opened my eyes to Irish culture, and it really had a big effect on me growing up. And I've always been curious. And then maybe you disagree. I don't know. I find the jump from Irish to Scottish is like there's a little bridge there, you know. This guy that introduced me to Irish culture, his best friend was a Scots, and I don't know. Am I wrong there? That is there not a bit of a brotherly relationship between Irish and Scottish culture? Is that just a Hollywood thing that I have in my head?
oh no, no, that's most definitely a real thing. It's there's if you like, the Scots, the Irish, and the Welsh are Celtic nations, so they definitely have and whereas England is on its own in the island, in this small island.
So
Um,
who's segregating who then? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why would the English not be, or because they're not Celtic, I suppose. It's a different language, right?
it's
Where did the
at one
English
point
language
it would have
come
been a
from?
different language, but we all speak English now. But the it's a different bloodlines, different peoples.
And
Um,
of resistance to the British Empire, no? Don't you guys share that in common that there was an unwillingness to bow down to the king, you know?
well, the kings and queens now. There's an interesting storyline. What is a king and a queen? But Scotland, if you just look at like the the coat of arms, for the UK, for Britain, Scotland is represented as a chained unicorn.
Is that what it is? That's Scotland?
So we're a chained unicorn. So the unicorn symbolises creativity and kind of imagination and basically just the awesomeness of humanity.
In
But
Scottish mysticism, that's what the unicorn.
in all kind of general mysticism, the unicorn has looked at this mythical beast which has great power, and it's magical, and just to see it can change your life. And we are represented as a chained unicorn, like the lion has chained us, it has us under its tosh.
Is Ireland represented on that coat of arms as well?
Ireland broke free.
Are they on the coat of arms though?
um they will be, yeah.
Because they have a piece of it, they still got North Ireland, no?
Northern Ireland and Ireland, yeah. There's
This guy that this Irish guy, he made me a tape of old Irish. He called them Irish rebel songs, and he said that if you sing these songs at a bar in Northern Ireland, you'll likely get arrested or have the shit kicked out of you or something like that,
oh,
because they're all just like, you know, Ireland being free kind of songs.
I know it's a serious stuff. So in the coat of arms, the sort of UK coat of arms, the two major um, kind of symbols on it is the Scots and the English, and on the left hand side you've got a lion representing the English, and on the right hand side you've got a unicorn which is chained representing Scotland. So, and then within it you've got the Irish and the Welsh.
What about the fact that they say that the head of Freemasonry is the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, that that's the home of free. Do you consider that to be something native to Scotland in this in the Scottish history, or is that something from outside that they planted in Scotland?
No, I think that comes like we're in Coinning, which is basically a part of the town which I grew up in, a town called Irvine. They have the Zero Lodge, which is the mother lodge of all lodges.
Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. I always wondered why Scotland. Why did they?
Well,
Why is that the home?
it probably stems from excommunication from Rome. So round about 1300s, 13 maybe 1320, something like that. Robert the Bruce, King Robert the Bruce, killed I'm not going to say he killed a clergyman, but he killed somebody anyway. Maybe it was a representative of the Catholic Church, but he killed them on Holy Land. He killed them within the vicinity of a church, if my history's serving me right. And the Pope excommunicated, because he was the king, the Pope excommunicated Scotland from the papacy. From then on, we basically attracted, if you like, the Knights Templar as a safe haven when they were getting persecuted around about that kind of time, the 1300s. And obviously, Scotland was beyond the northern winds, it was at the ass end of Europe, if you like, right up in the north. And it's got a long history of fighting Rome. So,
A long history of what?
fighting Rome.
Uh-huh.
The Romans couldn't conquer us. They had to build a wall to keep the barbarians out.
Yeah, I remember that seeing some video of that wall. I'd like to go, man. I'd like to go see those Scottish Highlands and stuff one day. That just because of that history, Like I'm very rebellious by nature, you know what I mean? I've never liked authority. So whenever I hear stories of people kicking the British out and standing like I kind of get excited. I'm not a big fan of the royal family and the monarchy and stuff. That stuff makes me really sick.
Well, I personally I'm with you in that. I don't understand. Like I did not choose to be born white, born Scottish, born in 1980, etc., etc., etc. I didn't choose these things, so that therefore the Queen or the King did not choose these things, and just by some strange random act of randomness, then they are the King or the Queen, and I am their subject. Bullshit. We're all
So
born under the sun,
do
and
you
we're
not
all equal.
feel strong any kind of nationalism then because of like you didn't choose to be born Scottish, so do you have any kind of nationalistic pride in Scotland, like in any of that way, or
Oh no, definitely. Like my name is Rob Wallace, which is like Wallace is a very kind of Scottish name, and where I come from, within sort of 30 miles of where I come from, that name Wallace has been there for 1,000 years, within kind of 30 to 40 miles of the area where I was born and come from. Again, that is a name which has been on that land for almost 1,000 years. Definitely, I like to read about the history and my culture and all that sort of good stuff. But really, recently we voted for independence or not independence, and I voted for independence, not for any nationalistic fervour.
independence from what?
Independence from the UK. We were trying to break away to become our own independent nation. Scotland no longer a part of the United Kingdom. Scotland is an independent country because at the minute we are governed by England. England is where Westminster is, and it's the main parliament. We have our own national parliament, but we're governed and everything is superseded by London. Uh,
Is it just like a symbolic relationship like in Canada too? We have our queen. Everything is named after the queen here. She's on our money. She's on, but people argue that it's only symbolic. How directly tied is your politics and power to England? I
oh,
didn't know that. I always thought that Scotland was independent. I thought you guys had.
nope, nope, completely tied. Like we yeah, we don't control our taxes. We don't control, all the key things. For
And
instance,
what is the rebellious temperature there then? Is there a lot of people that have, like, is there still active talk about that, or has everybody just kind of
yeah,
gone on with
yeah.
it?
So last year we had an election to vote, and it was something like a 90+% of the populace that was eligible to vote voted. And the powers that be won 55% to 45%. But if you if you were to talk to anybody and communicate with anybody, it was all pro independence.
Do you think the voting is rigged? Because I just saw something. I was in Spain in
It was like
August.
the Catalans and the Basques
Yeah,
and
I went south into like Barcelona, and there was these flags for independence everywhere.
yeah,
Like just littered, the whole city was littered with them. Not just like apartments and houses, but commercial buildings and beautiful buildings and like churches and stuff like that. There was these flags hanging out of the window. I was like, what the hell is that? And people explained to me that every one of those flags is somebody that wants to break free and have independence. And I was just like, oh my God, because I saw so much of them. I thought there's a revolution here. Like, and then later I learned that they've been going through this for years. And every time there's a vote, they get the same thing. They lose like 45, 55.
yeah.
And you hit those, you said those same numbers. So
No,
do you suspect that the votes are counted? If you guys were to win 55-45 in your favor next time, would they really do it? I can't imagine it.
well, if you look at it like in Scotland, that was for independence, and then we had because we vote our MPs into a member of Parliament into the English Westminster Parliament prior to the independence when we lost, and then the next vote to elect our MPs, the whole country voted near enough every member, every seat for the SNP, Scottish Nationalist Party, which basically took out all the competition. So
Did you call it socialist nationalist?
it's a Scottish National Party. They're the main party which is leading, if you like, towards the idea of independence. Me personally, I like the idea of independence because it gives us an opportunity to rip out the ancient, outdated political system, institutes, financial systems, etc., and attempt to can write a fresh constitution, a fresh ideas. It's like
Now,
there's
that's
some,
easier said than done. I wonder that.
but that's
It's
the
easy to rip out the old. It's not so easy to come up with a good plan for the new. Like a
and
lot of people in that part of Spain, they would say it's in idea, it's great to be independent, yes, but can you survive on it? Has the system been designed in such a way that if you unplug from it, you're going to starve? You know what I mean?
I know for sure, and that's one of the it's one of the arguments that the opposition gave time and time again. You know, we're too small, we're too weak, we're no, we don't have the resources, we don't. But to me, it's a stupid argument because there's plenty of small nations in the world, you know, and they do just fine. And it's not about the where you are on the pecking order. It's about the ability to say we're going to raise the taxes, we are going to decrease the taxes, we are going to. I would rather, for me in Scotland, I would
That's
rather
the
be able to drive to my parliament, which is 40 minutes away, and shout at they shower of bastards who rule me, than drive 10 hours to the shower of bastards that are doing in England. But the fact is, there'll still be a power of bastards who are governing me. But I would prefer to be able to within driving range, and you know, can the it's you've always got your own interests at heart. When the population of Scotland is 5 million, the population of England is 75 million, and their biggest city has more people than our entire nation, has more money than our entire nation, then we become very low on the political agenda for everything and anything. But we have very good resources, you know, we have oil in abundance, we have wind in abundance, we're very rich culturally, You know, Scotland was one of the key nations in inventing the industrial age. We invented a whole shed load of loads of things. We've got 2 universities in the top 20 universities in the world, and for a country of 5 million in the land, it's quite a unique, you know, we're a competitive country in the worldwide kind of spectrum. But we, if you had a great asset with good resources, people, land, physical resources, would you let it go? You know, if you were a business from that perspective, they're
Well,
not
it's like you
interested
said,
in letting us go.
looking outside. I don't know. I think that that's the question right now. I mean, as you know, whenever we talk politics and stuff, people talk about how everything is being globalized and being unified. You know what I mean? Like, I see a system being laid into place that's setting up for a singular system, a singular government, and it's trying to eat up as much as it can. It's like, you know, it's trying to get everywhere, and those countries that aren't part of it are the ones that are getting bombed, right? So, have they built it so well that can you survive outside of it anymore? Is it even possible for this idea of nation states anymore and independent sovereignty? It doesn't seem to work anymore. Your money's no good. You can't trade because you're not part of these agreements. Your borders get all fucked up. It's like you got to plug into the system now. It just like, I don't know, can it even work? Can a country like Catalan in Spain or Scotland, or we talk about Iceland sometimes
Iceland,
on the
yeah.
forums, right? Iceland supposedly did it. I'm not sure exactly the terms of how they did it. Um,
I'm going to Iceland this year, so
I mean, we talk about it in Quebec here. They're always doing the same kind of thing. They're talking about it, but I think it's on one hand, it's crazy to try to govern large areas. It's like you said, Scotland is such a small percentage of that political system that you're not really it's not really working in its best interest. I grew up on the west side of Canada in British Columbia, and that was always the complaint there too, that all the decision making was being done on the other side of the country, in Ottawa, way far away, and none of them had any idea what life was like in the West Coast. But on the other hand, if everybody goes independent, we fall back into some kind of like, you know, uh, is that possible? Is that good? Is that worth fighting for anymore? Or is it futile?
see, I agree with what you're saying, um, but my um, objective, if you like, for becoming independent was mainly to, like, for instance, if I'm an inventor or if I'm an artist, you know, you can sit down and learn some new techniques, and then tonight you can sit down with a bit of paper or on the computer and employ the techniques and see if they work and refine them, etc., etc. But if you've been studying political systems and new forms of law and new forms of taxation and all these kind of like state of the art kind of theories on how to can basically move humanity into the future, the Star Trek like future, then you need a nation state that is willing to rip out the chains and willing to attempt a reset. And
I
that's what
agree. I
Iceland done,
agree, and
and
that's
what
what
Scotland was
drives.
trying to do.
That's what drives whatever activist or rebel in me is like. I think you got to pull the knife out. You got to pull the like. For me, there's an infection that's identifiable. You know, you can see it. You can look at it. This is what's fucking everything up. The easy part is pulling it out. I think, well, how you rebuild it though is the other question, you know?
And that was an interesting question that a lot of people kind of were asking in Scotland was, if just say that we did become independent, if we'd never had the institutions and the constitution and the various new tax and laws, etc., to be ready to be put in place with a new model,
And how do you
then the big
decide on that?
corporations would come in with their clever folk and implement a new system straight away, taking over all that hard work and good work and all that goodwill. They would just bypass it with their money.
And you
Uh,
have to look at history too, right? According to the history that I've learned, anytime anybody anywhere really tried to break free and do their own thing and come up with their own ideas of how they wanted to be run, they got squashed, man. There was a coup or there was an invasion or there was a war or something. It doesn't stand. So you got to be ready for that too, you know? If
s-
Scotland were to ever really rise up, let's say you could get 90% of the people to vote independence and you all stand up and say, we don't want, we don't want the Queen no more. Um, are they really going to just kindly let you do what you want to do?
so this is where, for me, I like to ask some questions about. I'll take it to the strange, the kind of idea of. So, are we like a farm? Are we just like in a farm, like either a holographic farm like the Matrix,
It's the flat earth petri dish, man.
yeah, or like an alien, or more advanced society somewhere that's maybe beyond our known physical spectrum that we cannot sense with our physical senses or with our
You
technology.
need those glasses. You need those Roddy Piper glasses.
Yep, just like that, like kind of another dimension,
I
or
make a joke, but I'm open to that possibility. To tell you the truth, when I look at the power structure in the world now and through history, and I examine it because I've been quite fascinated with it. When I really look at it, it seems so far from what I know about being human. It seems so inhuman. It seems so impossible. You know what I mean? So I've
a
thought many times
100%, it is so
it
inhuman.
could be the conspiracy could be really large. I'm open to that because sometimes it seems that way. And who would be running such a thing? It's almost as if it's so big we can't fathom it sometimes.
It's in the fantasy novel that I'm writing, um, which is called Illusion. It's basically all about that.
That's
It's
good.
it's all about this. Like the classic question: does a cow know that it's farmed?
Yeah.
Does a cow know that it's
Have you
going to be a
read
hamburger?
1684?
I have not. No.
No. It's probably a good thing. Your book will be more honest.
I think a lot of the times, like as you say, like when you're writing stories or movies, etc. A lot of times it's good not to watch other movies when you're writing like punk
I
songs.
agree.
It's good
That's what
not
we
to
were
write
talking
punk
about
songs
earlier.
so you
Because
can.
the more you watch, the more you're gonna unconsciously pick up and steal and you know what I mean. Your movie will be a jumble of all your favorite movies. I've found that happen to me a few times for sure. So that's another reason why I don't like to watch too many movies because I want to try to keep whatever story is coming through me, keep it as pure as I can, keep it really listen, make sure that I'm getting it the way it wants to be told. Like I said, I don't feel like it's me that's doing it. There's this story and I'm either going to get it right or not, you know? That's cool that you're writing that, man. Congratulations.
You've got the if at the end of the day, the place where you write, if any, a place that's probably the best place to tackle these kind of real, say, far fetched kind of ideas, etc. And that's
Hey,
the best place to really tackle them is that kind of inner world where um, you can create these kind of crazy different reality windows and attempt to follow it down the rabbit hole to see where it goes. And if somebody reads it and thinks it's kind of entertaining or interesting, that's good. If they don't, it's a good place for you to work through your own ideas and different options of potentially how the
it
reality
reminds
window
me.
could be.
There's a guy named Graham Hancock. You ever heard of him?
Yep, big Graham Hancock,
He's like
Highway of the Gods.
he's got different theories about history, about the history of humanity and the earth and stuff like that. And he's always looking for that. So on one hand, he's, this kind of scientific guy. He does, he goes looks for evidence and stuff like that. But I've never read any of them, but supposedly he puts a lot of his theories and ideas into fictional books as well. That's another reason, a way that he makes his career is he writes fiction, and all his stories are based on his the ideas that he explores through his research. I thought that was interesting that he puts the two together.
I would say that that's like obviously I'm not Graham Hancock in any way. I've never wrote like Fingerprints of the Gods and do world tours, and I've never been to Egypt and these kind of archaeological sites. I've been to quite a few in South America, but
To go in
that
South America, did you go? Do you know Brazil at all?
I went to Brazil for a day, but that's it's all of these readings that I've constructed my worldview, and you get a wee bit in the podcast as the podcast goes along, but um, I've attempted to try and put it all down in a Conan style kind of fantasy with loads of violence and try to sh- show a different way to look at the world that we're living in just now, how it could possibly be perceived from a different angle, how we're a farmed species, but uh, hopefully it will come out and it'll be cool, etc.
That's a
And
theme, that's a theme I think a lot of people are tapping on. Like that's basically the Matrix too, right?
it's like that, but I suppose the difference is I'm weaving in there a lot of spirituality and kind of strange inner world perspective through can taking really strong hallucinogens and stuff and a different as you were saying earlier on, like to understand the ancients, you'd have to go back there and like a time machine and immerse yourself in the culture and understand the mythos and the way that they looked at the stars and the drugs that they took and the family hierarchies, the cultural hierarchies, and it would take years to like actually observe in an ethnographic kind of sense and then understand,
And you'd still never get it.
and you still wouldn't get it. So I'm trying to build a world like that, kind of a whole every tribe has a different way of kind of perceiving. They all have a different reality tunnel. Like I have one tribe called the Gavods, and they're a nomadic tribe. And the way that their inner world, because a lot of the writings about their inner worlds and how they interpret how their reality window works.
When somebody from one tribe goes to visit another tribe, do they start to pick up on that reality or do they not see it?
Well, they at first they're obviously impose their own reality tunnel, kind of like how do you treat your women like that, or can that is that's a no-no in my culture kind of thing. People do these automatic things where they react to the things in their culture. For instance, if you're drinking in the South cultures, you would clink your beers together. In some cultures, that's a no-no. It's a sign of disrespect. It's like, why the fuck did you just clink my beer? That's you just disrespected me, motherfucker. Let's go outside and have it. And you're like, well, in my culture, it's a sign of respect. Or, there's so many different. And it's interesting to see. Some people take these things so literally. It's like, well, just calm down, relax. It's just a different way of looking at things. But like a nomadic culture where it's all about essentially almost about survival of the strongest, because you have to be strong, to a kind of a society which is based completely on magic, where every single thing is there's no distinguishment in the language between magic and colour, or magic and water or physical things. It's all everything is the same. It has the same weight. Whereas, like, if you look at our culture, you talk to somebody about chaos magic, and they would just be like, "What the fuck is that guy on about? Magic? That's
A lot of worried about that. I hear a lot of complaints from places in Europe and other cultures too. The world used to be like that, right? Before air travel and before internet, the world was like all these little pockets of radically different cultures and languages and way of life and reality tunnels, like you said. But now with internet and the planes, they're kind of all bleeding together. Sometimes I think it's sad that we're going to lose those reality tunnels because everything is overlapping now. You know what I mean?
Oh no, for sure, and it is. Um,
They're going to get lost. These magical reality tunnels that are real, that are powerful, that only through that lens can you see this or that or understand what, different phenomenon. There's going to be things that we're going to forget, you know?
and it just shows you that the fact that like the brain is a computer and the physical hardware has X amount of different sensors, but it can be programmed so many different ways. You know, you can run. You're a Mac. You use the Apple operating system. I'm a Windows user, but there's
Deprogrammed.
100 other different bits of software that you can run on your computer to make it do 100,000 different things.
Yeah. I think there's value in deprogramming as well, recognizing the program. It's like I said, we can experience the world through the five senses, or we can experience the world just because we're already a part of the world. We're already there. We're already in it. You know what I mean? There's a direct connection too, right? So I think that's what meditation is all about. It's shutting that computer down, shutting it off, shutting it up, and just like finding that direct connection instead of interpreting it mechanically all the time, you know?
Have you heard of Wim Hof, the Iceman?
Who?
Wim Hof, the Dutch Iceman, the master of ice. He's done. He holds multiple records for like running up Everest in his underpants and swimming under ice
Uh-huh.
rivers and for like 50 meters and sitting in a bath of ice for like I think it's like 2 hours. His world record.
And what makes you think about him?
Well, he talks about when you say meditation there and shutting down and stuff. He talks about the lizard brain, and he talks about fight, flight, fuck, and freeze. And he says he was into every kind of meditation, every kind of Buddhist or spiritual path, religious path, etc., etc. Pain, again, psychoactive drugs, music, drumming, you name it. He tried it all to try to get to that place. But what he found was the cold, the freeze. I mean, when you go into the cold, when you go into the ice, your body shuts down, and instantly silences your mind. Your mind goes into the deepest meditation. He says that once I found the freeze, or once I found the extreme cold, I stopped reading. I stopped reading about spiritual paths and all that. He said I had a direct connection with my lizard brain. My whole brain shuts down. It's fight, flight, fuck, and freeze. And through this, he's created a system called the Wim Hof method, which is about using cold techniques and breathing techniques to basically create a superhuman abilities. Like he ran one of the hottest deserts in the world with no water because he can fully control his autonomic nervous system, and
Wow.
he can inject adrenaline into his system at will. And he's been tested so many times in scientific where they'll inject him with a microbe or a virus, and he'll basically rev up his autonomic auto nervous system to fight it.
That's what I'm talking about. I think we have it backwards. Consciousness and thoughts come first, and then they manifest out. I think that you can't, like they talk about placebo effect, right?
Yeah,
Every scientific test, they have to do a placebo group. Like even the most hardcore scientists have to agree that it works, that there's placebos is a part of how we work. They have to, otherwise they wouldn't include it in their tests. But they're not looking into that. How does it work? If you believe that you're healed, your body will start to heal. What kind of power is that? We should be understanding that. I
yeah.
think you can do it. Likewise, you can make yourself sick. if you keep focusing on this part of your body that feels wrong and you keep thinking about it all day and keep thinking about it and going to the doctor and I think something's wrong, I think something's wrong, you're going to create it. You're going to make something wrong. Well, who was that? Who said that? It was a good quote. He said, energy flows where attention goes. Oh, that was David Icke. He said that. That's a good little quote. Energy flows where attention goes. It's true. Wherever you put your attention you're feeding it, you know?
Uh,
That's cool. I want to learn about that ice guy. Post some shit, or I'll do it.
Wim Hof, it's really cool. Really cool. I wrote an article about him for the MMA show because Alistair Overeem has started using his techniques.
Really, that's awesome, man. I met another guy, or not met another guy. I saw another documentary. There's another guy who does something similar with rivers. They call him, there's a documentary called Big River Man. And it's this crazy guy from Eastern Europe who is obsessed with swimming down big rivers.
Yeah.
And he does the Amazon and everything. He does all these crazy rivers that nobody tells him to do. And he said the same thing. Well, not the same thing. He said he gets into a trance and he becomes one with the river. And he says that that is like, the highest state of mind that he's ever experienced. And he said there's a point where you just like, you lose yourself. And I am the river, he says. And it's like this super, psychedelic cosmic travel experience. It's weird.
I think it's like this whole concept of the lizard brain. So like we are.
He's saying you need to shut off the lizard brain.
No,
Is that what he's saying?
you're essentially going to the lizard brain. You are like the entering the cold will automatically reduce you to non-thinking instantly. You don't have to go through the hours of meditation. You don't have to go through the hours of, the techniques and stuff. You throw yourself into an icy cold lake and your mind will automatically go blank because the lizard brain kicks in and survival kicks in. It's flight or fight, it's fuck, it's fucking I'm freezing, and boom, your body takes over. And if you can you throw the physicality of yourself into that, and then you become aware within it, and you start to observe your mind. It's because the mind and the body obviously have a connection. So you've put your.
It's not you.
You've
It's like the original question, who are you? You talk about how the Tibetans, they prepare for death by trying to isolate the part of themselves that will continue after death. Get used to that state of mind without the body, right?
Yep.
It's the same kind of thing. Who am I without the body? If I say forget all this physical stuff, what's left, right? I had similar experiences doing psychedelics. I think that I'm a little bit more prepared for death because of those experiences, because I've had strong inclinations sometimes while on a trip, like really strong trips, thinking this must be similar to what it feels like to die, because you forget the physical world. You're just, you're just your awareness kind of floating around. And if you can get comfortable with that, they say the same thing with sensory deprivation tanks, right? Those little capsules that they go in.
Yeah, man.
Or meditation, or going in the cold, or whatever, right? You separate, you pull that piece of yourself out. That's really, what a strange way to achieve it, though, jumping into the ice. Sounds painful to me.
Sounds
I'd rather do the 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks on the shores of Scotland.
But that takes a long time. I've done. I've personally went through a lot of the different. Like I have a bed of nails. I've done the kind of piercing, kind of pain, or in India the fakir route, using pain to get to this state.
Specifically looking to change your state of mind. You've
Yep.
done these things with that intention.
With pain, yeah.
Really?
I've done the flotation tank, sensory deprivation tank, hallucinogens.
Kind of hallucinogens.
Sorry?
What sort of hallucinogens? Have you-
Salvia divinorum, which
Ooh.
is the strongest natural entheogen on earth. Comes from Mexico, and it's a non-alkaloid based system, and it's very different from every other. It's like DMT, alkaloid
How
based.
long is that the trip that only lasts for like a minute or something?
If you smoke it, yeah, sort of 10 minutes. But natively and traditionally, they roll the leaves up and they chew it, and it gets absorbed through the mucus area in your mouth. And it takes a few hours, and they call it the like, great teacher plant. Um,
What
and
they
with
say.
that, I fell through infinite black space for an infinite amount of time, and that in itself is just a sentence. But if you just break that down as an experience, infinite black space for an infinite amount of time.
That's where you felt that you were.
Yeah, and then I sort of crash landed, but I never crash landed because I was, you know, how dream kind of worlds work, you know. And I met a crocodile made of leaves, and then I woke up.
That's interesting. I maybe I'm getting it confused with DMT. I thought there was either salvia or DMT. Most people don't remember the trip. They get blasted for like a few minutes and then they come back and they can't recall anything, like waking up from a dream. And I think, what's the use of that, right? But you remember, you have a
Oh no,
memory of it.
yeah, totally vivid. It was like a whole, you know,
So, of the
and
bed of nails, the salvia, all the different things that you've experimented with, which have you found was the most impressive method of,
but
you know, achieving higher states of consciousness? Do you find is
well, they all have their own qualities. It's almost like again comparing a beautiful painting in color to a song
yeah,
or a nice lasagna.
good?
They all have.
Do you ever go just hiking way out in the mountains, like far away from civilization? I used to get really interesting states of mind in when I was in British Columbia. Sometimes I'd go with my friends, and we'd find a hiking trail way out, like out on the logging roads, and this trail would go up to the top of a mountain where there's just nobody there. You'd sit on the top, you look as far as you can go, you can't see anything, and being way out in the nature like that sometimes really trips me out.
Tuned into nature, definitely. I
Do you
think
have
that's a
access? Do
natural
you
thing.
have access, or do you live in the heart of a city? Like,
I
can you
I
go
I,
places?
I stay in the heart of a city, but Scotland's a small place, so you know I can in half an hour, 40 minutes drive, I'm in the mountains.
Nice.
So
I
it's
miss I miss mountains. I live in Ontario now, and there's no mountains here, and people don't understand that.
but
I love mountains. Mountains, they calm me down. I love them.
but
I,
the thing about the Canadian mountains are very different from the Scottish mountains. I think you know the mountains that you have out there are like serious mountains.
in some parts where I am now, we have mountains. I just went snowboarding in Quebec, and they have mountains there, quote unquote, but they're not the same. I'm talking like British Columbia mountains are, they're crazy. They're
Yeah,
so,
it's like when I was in South America and I was at the Andes and various other kind of mountain ranges right down at the very south in the Chile, and you're like, no, this is mountains. Scotland has mountains, but fucking hell,
yeah,
these are mountains.
yeah. When you can't see the top of it, that's when you know you're in the mountains.
You're like, holy
They're
fuck.
so huge. It's like, but that's what I talk. It blasts you into a different state of mind because when you're when you're not in the mountains, your reality tunnel is like the most significant thing. That's what's going on. You're seeing it through your reality tunnel, and that's what's most important. But when you're next to a mountain, that's like a fleck of dust. It's like it means nothing, you know? And you realize that. You're like, whoa, all my troubles, all my thoughts and concerns and worries or whatever, my reality tunnel, it's really nothing because here's this humongous mountain that doesn't give a fuck about that. And you know what I mean? So for me, that kind of like really sheds all that nonsense that goes in the brain and the sense of self. And it's just like makes you think that all this nature, all this land that I'm around, mountains and rivers and oceans is the same thing to me. It's so big. It's like that goes on, man, whether I'm here or not. My problems are so insignificant, you know? It's because so to me, that's a good drug because it shuts all that up and you just like start to bleed outside your own head and just feel what's going on around you. Nature's good for you, man.
I,
People need to get out more.
I was just about to say the beach for me is the exact same. You know, when you just stand there and you've got the waves crashing and that kind of fresh air and it's just kind of magical. It resets. You just can't.
There's one of my favorite stories. Um, I don't remember exactly how it goes. There's a frog that lives in a well, and he loves it. It's his perfect home. It's a nice, lush well, plants living, you know. And one day there's this another creature comes by, and he says, "Where?" Like a crab or something. And the frog says, "Where are you from?" He says, "I'm from the ocean." He says, "The ocean? What's that?" And he says, "Oh, it's this huge thing with water." And the frog says, "Is it like half as big as my well? Because my well is pretty big, right?" He says, "Oh no, it's way bigger than that." He says, "Is it almost as big as my well?" He says, "No, it's way bigger." He says, "Bigger than my well? I can't believe that. I have to see for myself." So the crab says, "Okay, come with me. I'll take you." And then the story says, as soon as the frog saw the ocean for the first time, it was so big that his head exploded. And that always took that story that there's always oceans out there to find that are so big that it just shatters your whole concept. And I'm always on the hunt for those things, you know what I mean? Like those big moments of understanding that just like you jump up, you know?
It's I love that kind of because it's a classic story if you like that happens getting in life and it happens throughout history. It's like in the 1300s, Europe thought they were the bee's knees. They thought they were, you know, fighting the Christians, fighting Islam for the Middle East, and then from nowhere, from some place that they had never even imagined, came the Mongols and just fucking obliterated every motherfucker. And again, you just there's always something on the horizon that you have no awareness of, which just has the potential to change your entire worldview. Everything that you thought you knew or experienced through everything, and it just gets right. I need to reset this.
And that's why it's important to keep that up. That's why I have trouble with the mainstream media and the education system and a lot of attitudes that come out of the scientific world and the academic world, because the more people gravitate to this idea that we have it all figured out, right? We're starting to get a grip on this. That's just when it slips through your fingers, man.
Yeah, there's no. We'll never have anything figured out.
No, but we'll have leaders that think that we do. And this, see, to me, the idea of trying to run a country is just farcical anyway. How can you possibly even attempt to organize and run something so with so many variables? It's like it just seems like a really stupid thing to even consider trying to do. But I don't know, maybe not. Hey, listen, we broke 2 hours.
Yeah, man. If we
That,
call it a day on the 2 hour, I think that's a good productive length for a podcast.
I was happy to talk to you. I thought we'd get along, man. Like I said, we share a lot of good interests, the same interests.
And it's quite amazing how there's a lot of flow in the concepts and the ideas, and how we can, even though there's a lot of difference, there's a lot of flow because we are open to other perspectives. And I think just on that last bit there about the whole idea of kind of this rigid viewpoint, it's a square window and it's green, and that's the only window that we have, and we know that it's a square window and it's green. And it's like, and then somebody comes along and goes, "Well, it's actually I've got a triangle, and it's yellow,
Yeah.
and it
No, you
hums."
You're just lying. You're spreading disinformation. You must be a shill.
My God is greater than yours.
Get out of here.
Well, thank you very much for coming along and being on Everything's an Illusion podcast. It was, I'm sure the listeners will have had a fantastic journey right there through everything from history, music, art, science, religion, philosophy, cultural perception, reality tunnels, psychedelic drugs. There was a lot covered, so hopefully folk will get a good listen to, and we'll get some feedback and get you back on again for another another podcast, maybe on a set subject.
Yeah, we'll talk about all the undeep stuff. We'll get into all the silly stuff. Go read Sonen's War. It's ridiculous.
So, so definitely, if you want to check out any of Masato's stuff, your website's masatotoys.com. And I'll have all the links to. You get a fantastic book. You Are the President, a conspiracy adventure game, which I think you could market that with another wee bit of. At the minute, adult colouring in is really big, and you can obviously as you're going through the adventure game book, you can colour in your way through it.
Should come with a set of pencil crayons.
Yeah, because that's a big thing. It's I don't know if it's big in Canada, but in Scotland at the minute, a lot of people buying these adult colouring in books, which are quite intricate compared to kids colouring in. The patterns are a wee bit more complicated. But they're sold as a stress release because, life is too...
It's a drug, man.
Yeah.
They're getting hooked on that stuff. It's dangerous. It's a gateway. They start with the coloring books. And they're like, oh, this is trippy. I need something stronger.
Well, there you go. You Are the President, a conspiracy adventure book with, additional information to blow your mind and give you some extra content as well as colouring in.
Uh-huh.
Hits you on many levels.
And if you like MMA, read. One of the things that I'm most proud of is something that fell completely under the radar. If you like MMA, I made a comic book about MMA legends and stuff, but it's actually a conspiracy metaphor. But don't tell anybody. But go read it. It's on the website. It's on the front page. It's called Sonen's War. I like when people read it, but there's only been like 10 people that have ever read it. So try to get somebody else to look at it, maybe.
Well,
but thank you for all the plugs.
On the underneath the podcast in the show notes, I'll have all the links to all Masato's products and to the forums, and I'd encourage you to check out the forums, check out the website, check out his art, check out his books. Definitely fantastic, high grade stuff. Get your chomps around it. And thanks very much for tuning in, and thanks very much for being a part of it, Masato. Nice one. Keep up the creative awesomeness.
You too, man. Keep going. You inspire me.
Take it easy, man. You inspire me.
Everything is an Illusion is brought to you by RobWallaceMedia.com, award-winning media. TheEnergeticMind.com, inspirational, motivational and thought-provoking art. And Health Made Simple. Buy today, change your life forever. healthmadesimple.info. Thank you, and remember, question everything.